Started with a list. 3 rules, 3 months, 0 excuses. I printed them out and left the paper on the counter before he came over. Dan didn't say anything when he saw it. He just stood there, reading it in silence, his thumb tapping against his phone the way it always did when he was nervous. No promises, only proof. If you say you'll show up, you show up. If you lie again, it's over. 3 months. That's what I gave him. After the last time, I swore I wouldn't do this again, watch him say all the right things just to fall back into old patterns. I loved him, but I was tired of being the only one fighting to make it work. He didn't argue this time. He just nodded slowly and said, "Okay. Then I'll start now." First, I didn't believe him. It was in the small things that I noticed something shifting. The first week, he texted when he was running late instead of leaving me waiting at the cafe watching the clock. The second week, he fixed the broken kitchen shelf he'd been meaning to get to since spring. The third week, he showed up at my sister's birthday, even though he hated crowds. He wasn't perfect. He still overthought things, still went quiet when we fought. But he was present, and that was new. Still, there was a wall inside me that refused to fall. One night I told him that. "You're trying, I see that. But I'm scared that you'll stop the second I let myself trust you again." He just looked at me and said, "Then don't trust me yet. Just watch." And I did. I watched him turn words into actions, slow, careful, sometimes clumsy but real. The night before the 3 months were up, he came over with a box of old letters I'd written to him years ago. He'd kept them all, every one. "I reread them," he said, voice low. "And I realized I stopped being the guy you wrote to. For the first time in a long while, I didn't know what to say. Maybe second chances weren't about forgiveness. Maybe they were about witnessing someone try again even when it hurt." That night he didn't kiss me goodbye. He just whispered, "See you tomorrow," and left. It was the first time I actually believed he meant it. By the time the 3 months ended, things between us looked almost normal. We were cooking together again, laughing at dumb TikToks, falling asleep with the TV still on. But I knew peace never lasted long with us. Not because we didn't love each other, but because love wasn't our problem, consistency was. The test came quietly. It was late October when Dan lost his job. The company downsized, and just like that, he was home all day, anxious, restless, and a little angry at the world. The same old patterns started creeping in. The short answers, the silence, the shrugging off of plans. One night I came home to find him sitting in the dark, scrolling through his phone, unopened job emails glowing on the screen. "You said you'd apply today," I reminded him gently. He didn't look up. "I will." "You said that yesterday." His jaw tightened. "Can you just stop pushing me for 1 second?" The words hit harder than they should have. That tone. The old version of him. For a moment it felt like everything we'd built was crumbling again. I walked into the kitchen and stared at the wall, my chest tight. I didn't cry this time, I was too tired for that. Then behind me I heard his chair scrape the floor. He came to the doorway, rubbing his face. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing. But please don't think I'm quitting on you." It wasn't a grand apology. It wasn't flowers or long texts at midnight. But it was honest. And that was something new. The next day, I found a sticky note on the fridge. Applied to 2 places. Made breakfast. You don't have to say anything. I smiled despite myself. That's what change looked like, messy, uncertain, but still forward. Weeks passed. He got a part-time job at a local hardware store. Nothing special, but it gave him structure. Some nights he'd come home exhausted, covered in dust, but he'd still ask, "Want to walk the dog with me?" That small question meant everything. It meant he was showing up even when he didn't have to. Of course, we still fought. About money, about his friends, about my tendency to overthink every silence. But the difference now was in what happened after. Instead of disappearing for hours, he'd stay. He'd talk. Sometimes clumsily, sometimes defensively, but he stayed. I started to realize that maybe love wasn't supposed to be perfect or cinematic. Maybe it was just 2 people choosing to show up, again and again, even when they didn't know what came next. One night he said, "You know, I still read that list sometimes." "The 3-month list?" I asked. He nodded. "It's not a deadline anymore. It's a habit." And for the first time I thought maybe we could really make it work. It wasn't one big fight that broke us down this time. It was 100 small ones. Missed calls. Unpaid bills. Long days that turned into silent nights. Life wasn't romantic anymore, it was just heavy. One Friday we argued over something stupid, a forgotten grocery list, I think. But underneath it I could feel the old fear again, whispering that maybe love just wasn't enough. He grabbed his jacket to leave, then stopped at the door. "I'm not running this time," he said. His voice shook, but he didn't move. "But I don't know how to fix it if you won't talk to me." I sat at the table, staring at the cold dinner between us. "I'm tired of fighting," I said. "Then let's stop fighting against each other," he said. "And start fighting for us." It sounded cliché, but something about the way he said it, exhausted, raw, real, made me believe him. So I stayed seated. And he sat back down. And for the first time in months we didn't yell. We just talked. Slowly. Honestly. About money, about pressure. About how hard it is to love someone when you're both scared of losing yourself in the process. That night didn't magically fix everything. But it became a turning point. Over the next few weeks we started rebuilding, not with big gestures but with structure. We made a shared budget. We started a rule. No sleeping on an argument, no matter how late it got. Some nights it meant sitting in silence until 2 in the morning, waiting for words that felt safe again. But we stayed. Then one evening in December, I came home to the smell of burnt pasta and Dan standing in the kitchen, embarrassed but smiling. "I tried to make dinner," he said. "It went badly." I really laughed for the first time in a while. He grinned and said, "Guess we're ordering pizza again." And in that tiny, stupid, perfect moment, I realized we'd made it past the hard part. Not because everything was suddenly easy, but because we'd learned how to do hard things together. Love wasn't about the list anymore. It wasn't about proving something. It was about showing up when you least wanted to, forgiving the human flaws, and still choosing the same person tomorrow. Months later I found that crumpled piece of paper, the original list, tucked in the back of a drawer. I almost threw it away, but then I stopped, because those rules weren't just for him anymore. They were for both of us.